Hello everybody, my name is Lily and welcome to today's video. This video is for all of my fellow people out there who either think they are autistic or know they are autistic. This is a dual video. I'm going to start off by telling you guys the steps to get a diagnosis and how I personally got diagnosed with autism, and then steps to manage autism. It can be hard out there to live with autism, I will admit, especially since you kind of feel like an alien in the world. You don't always feel fully human. It's scary. And I'll be honest, ever since my diagnosis, life has been hard. It is hard to try and rewire your life with this new information. But I will go out there and say, though, that if you think getting a diagnosis will provide some grand support, it probably won't. Depending on your needs, it probably won't. And a diagnosis isn't always necessary. The reason I got a diagnosis was because my family did not believe me. Neither of my parents believed me, because there is this stigma where they believe that if you are autistic, then you're not smart. And that is not true. I am very academically gifted. I will always be grateful for that. But being autistic does not make you suddenly not smart. Especially for those of us, I don't want to use the word high functioning, that's not like a word that my people like anymore. But just for those who do not need as much in terms of support, or even those who, any level of support you need, you are not stupid. Autism mainly affects our ability to interact socially. It does not necessarily interact with intelligence. And I never want anybody to think that, because my parents never once wanted to believe I was autistic, because they did not want to believe anything was wrong with their child. They wanted to believe their child was perfect in every way, and all those little symptoms of autism, that was nothing. That was just them being quirky and weird. That was just them being a little bit off the walls. It was not. And I really wish my parents had tried to get me diagnosed sooner, but I went out there and I got my own diagnosis. And I will tell you right now, it is hard to get diagnosed with autism, especially when you're an adult. As a kid, it's easy. You just take them to the doctor, and they'll do all the tests. They'll tell you if your child's autistic or not. But as an adult, it's a lot more difficult. And luckily for me, the process only took about a year. But for many people with any sort of diagnosis, especially stuff like autism, ADHD, anything, as an adult, it can take multiple years. So I want to let you know that if you're planning on trying to get a diagnosis, just know they probably can't offer you a lot other than the fact, giving you the thumbs up that you do in fact have autism, and it will take a long time. Here's the starting point though, a primary care doctor. That was my first step. You need to go to a primary care doctor because most places, any specialty place, will not take you unless you have a referral. Therefore, you need to go to whatever doctor you're already seeing. You tell them you think you have autism. My advice, put together a little document with all the reasons why. That's what I did. It was a long list, as well as I also brought in my boyfriend for support to a lot of these different appointments. And I will say, not every doctor was willing, but before that was in the middle of a lot of different doctors at the time. And some doctors might call you crazy. A lot of doctors might. A lot of people might call you crazy or say that you're lying or say, does it really matter if you get a diagnosis? But it does not matter what they think. If you think a diagnosis is important, you deserve to see a specialty doctor. Whether or not you actually have it or not, you deserve to see a specialty doctor. And always remember that, because there's a lot of medical gaslighting in the world. I myself have dealt with a lot of crazy doctors, and a lot of doctors who did not believe me, or a lot of doctors who were just kind of gaslighting me. And I don't know why doctors think they're better than people, but they're not. Your hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, your student loans, and your degree does not make you better than me. It does not mean you get to medically gaslight me, because you know your own body and you know your own brain, and a doctor does not. And while I always respect doctors, I will not respect the doctors. For example, I had a doctor who was convinced, at the start of my autism diagnosis, was convinced I had an eating disorder. And every time I saw her, it would be an hour-long conversation, not about the autism or about giving me a referral, but about my potential eating disorder, because I had slightly weird fluctuations in weight. And fluctuations in weight can be caused for a million different reasons. A million! There's so many reasons. Hormones, stress, under-eating, overeating, not necessarily eating disorder. But every single time I saw this woman, she'd make me do an EKG, she'd make me talk about food. She went as far as to bring in 3 other doctors, a nutritionist, a psychologist, and some other doctor, all just to try and prove that I had an eating disorder. I didn't. I, in fact, did not have an eating disorder. I still don't. I love eating. I don't have a bad issue with eating. I have never had issues with eating. But this doctor was so convinced, she was trying to gaslight me in any way into thinking I had an eating disorder. And you will come across doctors like that, and they will suck. And you will wonder how in the world did they ever even get a medical license if they suck this much. By the way, I ended up breaking up with her as a doctor when she sent me to the ER because my blood levels were slightly weird. And by the time I got to the ER, they looked at me like I was crazy because my levels were normal at that point. Doctors like that infuriate me and make me very scared to trust doctors. And so many doctors out there will gaslight you and tell you what you're thinking is just anxiety, especially if you're a teenager. They will tell you everything is anxiety. Everything. Even if it has nothing to do with anxiety, they will tell you it's anxiety. And it is maddening. But find a doctor who believes you. Because no matter what, if you feel you need to see a doctor for any reason, you deserve to see that doctor. So do not stop. Do not be afraid just because this person is older than you and has a medical degree. That does not matter. Because if you get doctors, anything like the doctors I've had, they do not deserve their damn licenses. They do not deserve to be in practice. They are insane. They are insane people. So remember to always stand up for yourself. But once you're able to get that referral, you might have to go see a psych person first, or they'll just refer you to a specialist in autism. You have to wait. Thankfully, I had found a doctor who was just getting started in their practice in my area. They did not have a lot of clients, but it was still a 9-month wait. And that was on the very, very low end. You can expect to wait multiple years even just to see someone. And that's going to be the hard part about this when you're trying to get a diagnosis, is the waiting. It'll be a lot of waiting and you'll feel like there's not really a purpose. But if you truly want your diagnosis, you just got to wait it out. So once you see the doctor, I recommend bringing someone with you because they often want testimonies from family or friends. I had my boyfriend. He'd been with me for a long time. And he knew me better. And then you talk through all your different symptoms. They'll talk about history, behaviors. They'll have you do some testing. They might have you do physical tests. All to see if you have autism. And that's if you have autism or not. And then they might give you a packet with a whole bunch of information. But you've done it. You got your diagnosis. You should be proud of yourself. Or maybe you didn't. Maybe it turns out it was a whole different issue. Maybe instead of autism, you had ADHD or OCD. Congrats. I'm proud of you. You got through the medical system. That sucks and will want to drain you dry of every penny and not believe you at the exact same time, and I'm proud of you. And now it's time to figure out how you're going to manage your autism. And the best advice I can give you for managing your autism, be proactive. Sadly, the world will not change for you, so you have to learn to manage with the world, especially if you have sensory issues. Always make sure you keep with you the supplies you'll need every single time you're out. Make sure you track your triggers. Make sure you figure out what things tend to set you off more than others. Figure out what things understimulate you and figure out what things overstimulate you. Because sadly, you cannot control the environment, but you can control how you interact with the environment. And that's the part you have to manage. It's also the hard part. It will take a while. You have to know your triggers. For example, one of my triggers is cold air blowing on my shoulders. So I always wear something to cover up my shoulders. That's my way of being proactive. Because it means I'm less likely to get overstimulated. Because one trigger is not always the biggest deal. You know, some air blowing on me, sometimes it's fine. But when there's multiple coming at you once, that's when you start to have autism breakdowns, and that's when it starts to just become not fun and overstimulated. As well as you have to know, people call it spoons. I call it cookies. How many spoons do you have to give every day for people? Because when you're autistic, man, when you run out of energy to deal with people, you are suddenly the bitchiest person on the planet, especially me. It's the autism anger. It's the autism, I don't care anymore, please just go away anger. I like to call it cookies, though. How many cookies do I have to give to people before I reach the point where it's just everybody needs to stay the hell away from me for the rest of the day levels? You just have to figure out your own needs. You have to look inward and figure out what you need, what your triggers are, and what you need to do. For example, I always bring with me chapstick. I always bring with me a notebook. I always bring with me a pen. I always have my phone. I typically have the normal stuff. Sometimes I'll bring a snack. But the most important thing I always have with me is a notebook, a pen, and that's actually about it. And chapstick. Those are my 3 things I need every single time I go out. Even if I don't use the notebook, I found notebooks and pens keep me calm. Sometimes I bring stuffed animals, sometimes I don't. But notebooks and pens and chapstick are the 3 things I need constantly. So I always know to bring that. As well as if I know I'm going to go out somewhere, like to a friend's house, I'll bring snacks or I'll eat a lot before I go because I have issues with food. Know your triggers, look inwards, and track it somewhere. Keep track of it until it becomes muscle memory. Because it will be hard for a while. And just remember, though, you have to speak up. No one else is going to speak up for you. You have to speak up for yourself, not just to doctors, but to everybody. Because it will be difficult. You have to tell people you're autistic even if you don't want to, because often that's important information, especially for things like friends, partners, teachers, because they can't help you if they don't know your needs. You have to be willing to tell people your own needs. Otherwise, you're probably not going to get it. Let's be real. Autistic needs are just not the norm these days. And that's okay. As well as my final piece of advice, have a good support system. Find friends who care about you. Find other autistic people. I noticed the moment I got my autistic diagnosis, I found a whole bunch of other autistic friends. It's like we're all magnets to each other. I found out people who I've known for so long had autism the entire time, and I was like, whoa, this is so good. Make a support system and make it work. Keep yourselves together and make sure you know each other's triggers and how to support each other. That is the most important thing. You need to stand up for yourself, be proactive, and have a good support system. And I am, of course, so proud of you. And if you are currently trying to get an autism diagnosis, I wish you the best of luck. It's not always the most necessary thing, but it can help. Especially if you struggle in school. I personally did not, so I did not need accommodations, but you can get accommodations that way. I wish all of you guys luck in your journey, and that will be the end of today's video. I love you all so much. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.